Goldstein.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And Deputy Speaker, can I begin by thanking the member for Boothby for a moving speech, because what she brings to this discussion, which is one of law, is the human experience and the awful abuse that she has experienced. And don't make any mistake about it, Deputy Speaker, it is not just her in this place that has experienced awful abuse. Many members know the same experience, and tragically it's the price of putting yourself up there to want to make your country a better place. And this bill starts from a very basic proposition, which is the conduct that is unacceptable offline should not somehow be licensed online. Now, I'm one of the first people to say that this area of law is a very complicated and difficult one, because the more opaque the law, the more flexibility we give, the more we empower regulators and censors to be able to decide what can be published and what cannot. But what we know is that where there is incessant intent, malice in the conduct that's published, that how much it has a direct impact on people and their mental health and well-being, and critically, for young and vulnerable minds that are in full development. And sadly, the member for Boothby has outlined despicable conduct she's experienced at the hands of online trolls, GetUp, and sadly activists for the Australian Labor Party, among others. And sadly, we see this conduct every day on social media. And I'm not suggesting that everybody, other people on the other side of this chamber haven't experienced abuse themselves. I've no doubt that the members opposite in the chamber right now have experienced despicable conduct from online trolls. Absolutely despicable conduct on the basis of race, ethnicity, gender and the like. And I know that's experienced by members on this side too. But truthfully, this debate isn't actually, or this bill isn't just about us. In fact, it's definitely not about us. It's about the Australian people and all of us. And the conduct that's experienced by young Australians, particularly where you see social media as part of their native environment, and they are put in a position where people target them deliberately and maliciously in content to harass, to bully, to engage in violent abuse, cyberbullying, which can even lead to fatal consequences. And it needs to stop. And the foundation of which it needs to stop is not from law, it's from the soft law of expectation, where where people are held in good standing of others and they moderate their behaviour. And one of the biggest challenges we face online is, of course, where there is anonymous conduct and where people feel that they can conduct themselves in a licensed environment in anonymity. And you see this every day. I mean, I'm not complaining, it's just the nature of these things, unfortunately, but there's a fake tweet that's being put out today in my name alleging that I wished ill will on the protest marches yesterday outside this place, while actually, if you look at what I said in this place, I was supporting the spirit of the marches, in particular gender equality, but that doesn't stop unlicensed, deceptive, misleading, dishonest liars and frauds putting out malicious content, and then it being repeated by their useful idiots in the Twitter sphere and then on Facebook and other social media platforms. And again, I'm not the only one who's ever experienced this. I'm sure even the member for Melbourne, whom I have many disagreements, has experienced that, as I'm sure as the member for Chisholm, as the member for every other electorate. And that's just tragically part of, as I said at the start, the consequence. So what this bill is trying to do is say not that we can stop free and public debate at all, but it is to say that there is a responsibility in how you conduct yourself online, to the extent that we can, through law, put basic safety expectations in place and to hold industry as much accountable as people for their conduct, particularly where they're the vehicle for publishing material online. And particularly, and this is a consequence of the Christchurch terrorist attacks, horrific attacks, which despicably we use as a form of political attack today, in the form of a question at question time, to stop abhorrent violent communication and conduct and volumetric attacks being part of online discourse that is normalised. We want to stop cyberbullying, and that's why we have the legislation included in it, strengthen cyberbullying scheme for Australian children, because there is no environment in which we would accept cyberbullying of children in the schoolyard, amongst their peers or another setting, and they're certainly not going to accept it online, Deputy Speaker. And we need to make sure there's proper processes for notification, identification, and for there to be appropriate penalties where it occurs. But critically, because with digital natives so often, with younger Australians, that there is a pathway where they may use technology in their adolescent minds for content of a sexual nature, that they do not become victim of attacks such as revenge porn, where content is used against people's will and is then used as the basis to target them and to bully and attack them. That sort of content, the most despicable, particularly when it may have been taken in privacy, should never be used as the basis for targeting and bullying others. And I don't think anyone's under any illusion, Deputy Speaker, the challenges we face from involving online platforms makes it harder to legislate and to regulate what goes on. And in many cases, it would be bad if the state had the power to regulate what goes on. But there are lines that we all accept. There is no place for harassment in society. There is no place for bullying in society. There is no place for violence online or offline. And there is certainly no place in a society where people are taken to the point they feel safe and they lose their own dignity because they have been targeted in a malicious nature by either individuals or the equivalent of online lynch mobs or digital lynch mobs because they think they can get away with it. So we are doing as a government what I would hope that most members in this place would support, which is to support Australians to have a basic standard of safety. Now, I've had some people who have raised with me concerns around some aspects of this legislation, particularly around the empowerment of what content may breach thresholds or lines, particularly around offensive conduct. But I've made it clear and made an effort to go and look at the specific details and how it would interact. And the specific measures which ordinarily would raise concern on my part are targeted principally at stopping of revenge porn. And I don't know anybody in this place, and I would hope not beyond this place, who thinks that that is acceptable or that would tolerate such conduct or think it should be legal. The threshold we apply when we want to limit people's conduct in the public square, online or offline, is to assume that all conduct is legal unless we explicitly made it illegal, and this bill seeks to make it explicitly illegal, and rightly so. So this legislation has an important part, and when the mums and dads and dads and dads and mums and everything in between and everybody else in society looks at the safety of their children in this country, they can know that what happens offline or online, the Morrison government has your back, and we understand the concerns and the fears for safety that exist within the community. And that if you're engaging in ordinary lawful conduct, that you shouldn't become the target of harassment, abuse or online bullying. Because that's how you have a society that prospers and flourishes, where people can go about their lives wanting to be able to contribute rather than fearing the worst. And in many ways what this law does is harmonises the offline to the online. And we're going to need to keep targeting and tinkering with these laws, Deputy Speaker, because the challenges and nefarious uses that are used by social media platforms, by those who wish other Australians and people from overseas towards Australians and in reverse, is not going to change. People seek to exploit avenues, and often, sometimes it's done through the innocence of adolescence. And we've got to set a new standard. That's why this law is important, but it is not the end. It is not even the beginning, because the beginning starts with the responsibility of the individual and of parents to assist their children in understanding the conduct as part of a value stream of how they should conduct themselves in a free society. But it is an important step. And it's a step that Australians can have confidence in, understanding we conserve the values that underpin the strength of our nation around protecting people's freedom, but in all senses, freedom to express themselves in the public square, but also their freedom online to be able to do it without facing bullying, intimidation, harassment of an offline or online kind. It won't fix everything, but it's another tool in the toolbox to hopefully conserve the best of our nature.